2025 regular meeting of the Jersey Shore Area School District Board of School Directors to order. Can I have a roll call, please? Dr. Ulmer.
Mr. Allen.
Present.
Mr. Brungar.
Here.
Mrs. Calhoun.
Here.
Mrs. Edwards.
Here.
Mr. McDonald.
Here.
Mrs. Peters.
Here.
Mr. Furman.
Here.
Mrs. Thomas.
Here.
Mrs. Stemler.
Here.
All members present.
Thank you. We will now have the Pledge of Allegiance. Dr. Ulmer.
In Mrs. Johnson's absence, I'm going to recognize our students tonight. We have Remington Renix and Elena Taylor, both representing Jersey Shore Elementary. Could you please come forward? I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, visible with liberty and justice for all.
Take your certificate and turn around so they can get the picture. Thank you for bringing them.
Next, we're going to have approval of the minutes. May I have a motion, please?
Motion.
Second. Are there any questions or concerns? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say aye. Motion passes. Approval of the treasurer's report. May I have a motion, please?
Motion.
I'll second.
Any questions or concerns? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say aye. Motion passes. Approval of the bills. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Any questions or concerns?
Dr. Ulmer, do you have any explanations?
Yeah, I will. I went through this last week with Mr. Enders. I will call attention to, and this always kind of throws us off, look at November. There were 3 pays in November, so that's why that number is higher. Also, in December, there is a payroll where a number of positions get, like the stipends get paid out twice a year. The first half happens in December, so that drives up payroll in December.
Any other questions? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say aye. Motion passes. Moving on to communications, Dr. Ulmer.
Nothing for this evening.
Okay. Under President's Report, we had an executive session prior to tonight's meeting to discuss personnel. And I also wanted to state that we are going to table items B and C Under Buildings and Grounds, Site Logic is here tonight to present to us, but we will not be voting on any of that presentation this evening. So I just want to reiterate, we'll be tabling the items B and C under Buildings and Grounds. All right, committee reports. Mr. Brungard.
Hold on just 1 minute here. Yeah, I'd like to just update the Avis project out here. I think initially when we started with it, went through with Nate Hollick, we were looking at subdivision into 4, not on, to possibly 4 or 5 lots, and then we had Cedar Run Environmental Services come in. They spent 5 hours out there going through the process of looking at the ground and everything else. And upon their recommendation or suggestion, I forget what the gentleman's name is, Mr. Basin, Stephen, he recommended that due to all the time that would take to go through the process and all the permits that we'd have to obtain from the Planning Commission, that it would just put a lot of burden on somebody here in the school district. So he recommended, rather than selling this and subdividing it into 4 or 5 different lots, he recommends that we sell it as one parcel in its entirety. So that's the direction that we're heading now. I think Dr. Ulmer's in the process of looking at a realtor to see what that actual money amount or dollar amount might be obtained from selling that, I think 70-some acres, that piece of ground out there as one parcel. Any input, additional thing from Bill, Tim, Mike, you were there the whole process?
How much you, excuse me, how much you dividing off for the school itself, of that property?
I don't think we really decided that. We're gonna leave some woodlands there, probably, I would think, a little barrier there somewhere at the top. So, I mean, right now, we're just looking for a price of what that one piece would be worth.
Per acre.
Talked about looking at comparables so that we have an idea, depending on the size of the chunk, how much would it bring on the market. So that will generate helping us figure out like how we would lot that off.
Right. You know, the last thing is, I guess we've gone through a lot of work here is the actual cost that the school district has incurred through this whole process here. I know Nate Hollick has spent a lot of time researching things and drawing up maps for us. I know he's met with us at least 2, maybe 3 times, I'm not sure. But his bill came in at $0. So he did not charge the school district anything, and I would like to send out on behalf of the school board here in the school district a big thank you to him. Cedar Run Environmental, he spent 5 hours there walking through that. Their rate was $100 per hour, so his bill came to $500. So that's what we have into the whole project right now. I think that's pretty good. So if you see Mr. Hollick, give him a thanks. Appreciate that. And I think he is still working on the cell project up there, trying to get some subdivision and going through the Planning Commission, get things moving there. So that's my report.
Any questions from the board? For Mr. Brungard. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Brungard, and thank you, committee, for all the time and effort you've been putting into that. Appreciate it. Student representative report, Kate.
I have no report.
Okay. Superintendent's report.
I'm going to start by pointing out on the agenda tonight are 3 job descriptions for presentation. Remember that we're not voting on these tonight. They're just there for you to look at. They'll be on later for approval. We did talk briefly before about the homeless, this is not the family liaison. You are required to designate someone in the district as the homeless liaison. It is a requirement of federal programs to have a set-aside fund for if that person would identify that a student is in need of support because they're homeless. So right now, Mrs. Wolfsleigel, in her job description, is identified as our homeless liaison. But that's all it says, is she's the homeless liaison. As we were going through monitoring, there was a list of things that she is required to do as the homeless liaison. So what we are doing is putting those things on a list as a job description. So if anybody would ever say, what does Mrs. Wolfsleigel do as the homeless liaison? Here's the list. I wanted it to be a separate job description in the event that somebody else is ever designated as our homeless liaison. This will be the list of things they're required to do, but we are required to designate someone, and it is designated as Mrs. Wolfsleigel in her job description.
Is there a stipend attached to that?
No, there is not. And the drama and musical directors, those we updated again as we just changed musical directors. So prior to, as we were going through that process of hiring a new musical director, we sat and looked at the job description, which also caused us to look at the drama director job description, and those have just been revised. And I am going to recognize Ms. Deb Bressler, who is here to talk about a potential trip to Costa Rica. I want to point out that there is at your seat a copy of her presentation that she will have up on the screen. Mrs. Bressler.
Okay. Good evening. I am going to be presenting to you an opportunity that we are offering our students, and this is going to be a Costa Rica trip in 2025 in June. My name is Deborah Bressler. I have been a Spanish teacher here in the school district for 36 years. This will be my 5th trip taking students abroad. And we just basically give this an opportunity for any student that wishes to do. Where we are going is in Central America. Costa Rica is the lower brown country. It borders Panama and also Nicaragua. It is rather safe. There has been no issues as far as political upheavals or uprisings. In fact, this country has no military. It disbanded it. So they put most of their efforts into the ecology, the biodiversity, and also education for their residents. As you can see where we're at in Pennsylvania, if you go past the Gulf of Mexico to the down to the Panama, it's fairly close to South America, basically just north of it. So it'd be South America, Panama, and then north of that would be Costa Rica. We are going to be flying into an airport called Liberia, and originally we had basically flown into the capital of San Jose, and then we would basically kind of make a circular voyage around to that. But lately they've been taking us to Liberia, and we will be spending different times in different areas of that area. We will be going to basically the Guanacaste area, the Arenal region, and also the San Jose capital area. And then we'll be flying home. Our travel dates are not set in stone, but rather we are given a window. And the trip is going to be an 8-day tour with a 1-day extension with the in the San Jose region. And the earliest that we could go would be June 15th, and the latest that we would come back would be June 28th. But our requested dates are going to be June 18th through the 25th, and working with the company EF, Each time we've requested a date, they have actually given us the date that we have requested. Some of the activities that we're going to be doing is we're going to be snorkeling in the Pacific Ocean and zip lining, whitewater rafting. We're going to be hiking into the cloud rainforest. We're going to be interacting with not only what they call the Ticos, which are the people of Costa Rica, but we'll also be interacting with some of the native Costa Ricans that we have. And of course, we're going to be indulging in many types of the Costa Rican food that they offer. Among those considered to be the national dish is called Pinto Gallo, which they have. They can have that at pretty much any meal. They don't, my students don't have to eat that at every meal, but a lot of times they do offer it. But it is an awesome adventure for us to go on. The company that I have partnered with is called EF Educational Tours. The school district has partnered with them for at least 40 years. I have continued what my predecessors have done. In my own experience, EF Tours has been very reliable and, in my opinion, has had my back. There was one instance where we were in Costa Rica and the entire electrical grid failed from basically southern Mexico all the way down to Panama. What that meant was there was no electricity, so that means there was no planes flying out. We were on our last day, but EF was working. We had meetings every 2 hours, but they were able to fly us out, basically 1 hour delayed. But in case that we weren't able to do that, they had arranged for our tour guide to stay with us. They arranged for hotel accommodations and also meals and things like that. We did not have to utilize that, but it was very nice that they had that available just in case. So I was very, very pleased with that support that they have given us. There are basically 28 travelers plus myself. There will be 3 other adults traveling with me. One is a teacher and 2 are parents that are going on. They will be, if they don't already have their clearances that are required by the school district, the state, and stuff like that. I am impressed with how my travelers act on the tour, and it's even amazing how a few days will actually change their outlook and being exposed to a different culture, different people, and most of my travelers coming with me have been my former students. Not all of them, because it is open to anyone that would like to go, but they get to practice their Spanish. So it's kind of like an open lab, and we get to do that. Is there any questions that you would like to know?
Any questions from the board? This will be on the next agenda because by policy, you as a board have to approve any trips that are to this extent. So,
I don't have a question, but I have a comment.
go for it.
Costa Rica, I don't know if you mentioned it and I missed it, is one of the few countries that runs almost 100% in renewable energy.
Yes.
99% because they have a lot of hydroelectrics and that's considered renewable. So approximately 99% of the time they're 100% renewable.
Yes, and their eco-tourism is very well there. It's an amazing country. I highly recommend it.
Any questions for Mrs. Presley? Gracias.
De nada.
And I'm going to recognize both Carla Villamazar from SiteLogic, Wayne Brookhart from SiteLogic, and I believe we have Mike Arnold online as well. And their presentation is coming up. As Mrs. Stemler discussed, they're going to talk about the projects that the Buildings and Grounds Committee has recommended. They are not going to be voted on this evening, but I'm going to turn it over to them to walk through what we had discussed at the last meeting.
Yes. And then we go through the presentation, you can see that presentation on his screen. And as you
I can send it, it's actually already attached.
Yeah, so if you just want, you can slide left and right this way, or tap on each new slide.
Got it, okay. All right, so we're going to go back to the start. Hello, everyone. Thank you for taking the time to listen to our presentation tonight. It's been a while since we've been here, but we've been doing a lot of things with the district. We did complete a project at Avis not long ago. Carla, you were involved very closely with that, I believe, and as Dr. Ulmer said, we have Mike Arnold, our senior VP, with us. He has a presentation he'd like to take you through. Will they see that as I move it, Dr.?
Yes, they will. It's in front of them and.
And you'll hear Mike as well?
Yep.
Okay, Mike, we're going to slide you through this. Are you ready to go?
Sure. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
We can hear you, Mike.
Fantastic. Well, yeah, good evening, and thank you for allowing me to join by Zoom. I have some heating issues at my house that I'm trying to take care of. And
I see that
hopefully
you
they'll
did
get
now.
taken care of soon,
I thought we were the
or
start.
something free. But anyways, so just wanted to give you an update as it relates not only to Avis Elementary and the Act 34 project there and the middle school project, but a brief recap on the Avis boiler project. So Wayne, if you could move to one more slide, please.
Yep, okay. You see it, Mike?
Yes.
It has the
yes.
prices up in the upper right-hand corner. Okay.
Yeah, and I do want to start there. So I just wanted to kind of recap on the grant that the district was able to be awarded. And that was for $600,000 with a minimum match by the district of $210,000. That is the way that the Act 34 grants worked. It is wonderful that you guys received some funding. Not every district did, so congratulations on that. That makes the total project of about $810,000 minimal. So what we have done in the meantime, we have issued, and the board has taken action on the dust collector project, which was $266,982. And tonight we're informing you that we did receive bids on the Avis Elementary School unit ventilators, which was the second part of the Act 34 monies, and that was $564,009. Again, those bid results were very favorable. We had originally projected that we'd be able to replace 8 unit ventilators. We're actually able to replace 13 for the total that you have there, which is pretty close to the range that the Act 34 grant had. So that project, again, is 13 unit ventilators, demolition of the existing, installation of the new, some piping, and all the associated control work with that. And the intent is for that work to be performed over the summer of 2025. We have included specific language for the grant, similar to what we did with the dust collector. Actually worked back and forth with the district and our solicitor to make sure that all the verbiage was correct, so that there was no issues with gaining access to the funds that you've been awarded. Wayne, if you go to the next slide.
Yep. Okay.
Can you advance to the next slide, Wayne?
Yeah.
Go another one, Mike?
We there? Okay.
Yeah.
Got it now.
Okay.
Got it now. Sorry. Yeah. So this is the middle school project. So as directed, the intent was to proceed with a project with a budget of $7.5 million for the middle school. Phase 1 of that included the long lead items that we wanted to bid early, and that was the unit ventilators as well. That pricing came in, again, pretty favorable. We were at $3,246,749, $3,246,749 for the 69 unit ventilators. We were anticipating closer to $4 million on that, but we did receive favorable bids in that regard. Phase 2, which is a scope that is pretty well finalized through the discussions with the district. We want to tweak that over the next, coming weeks, but that allows you another 4.2 million for that portion of the project. That work also would be scheduled for the summer of 2025. Again, we do try to do as much of the work as you know in the summer months so that we don't disrupt the educational function, especially unit ventilators, which are in classrooms. So we are trying to meet that timeline, obviously. And then Carla, if you have some additional scope to review, you're welcome to do that as well, other than the unit ventilator, some of the things that are involved with both these projects.
Yes, so because we have parallel projects on both schools, all unit ventilators will have like the MERV 8 filters, the stainless steel drain pans, ECM motors. This will be, I think, different from what you previously have. Factory mounted and wire disconnect switch. You're getting new controls both for hot water and chill water, and new controllers on the units. And all the units will be tied to your existing building automation system. You have an automated logic building automation system in both schools. So we will tie all the new equipment to the existing building control system. Besides that, and per your request, because of issues that we have had in previous projects, we are flushing and balancing all the chill water and hot water system, including the existing equipment. So equipment that we're not replacing will be still flushed out to prevent issues with clogging. We are including the complete water treatment in the schools. There is the clarification that there is no glycol in either chill water or hot water system in either of these buildings. So that doesn't apply. In the mechanical room in the middle school, we're also replacing an air separator with new air and dirt separator that will help maintain your systems clean. And that is both in the chill water and again, and hot water system. I think that's the highlight of the current projects that we're working on, Amendment 4 and Amendment 5. Now, we are moving on with the next phase in the middle school. The scope of work that we have discussed, and this list was basically provided by Mark, is domestic water heater and tank. Again, this is the middle school. Domestic water recirculation pumps, hot water pumps, chill water pumps. Then a lot of work on the gymnasium. We're gonna do the floor replacement in the gymnasium, remove the drop ceiling, and then the curtain wall and the wall padding in the gymnasium. In the unit ventilator project, we didn't want to touch because we didn't think it was the right solution. You currently have unit ventilators also in your library and the cafeteria, and we would like to remove, instead of replacing with in-kind equipment, we would like to improve that system with an air handling unit or a rooftop unit that has more fan power to circulate, because those are bigger spaces than a classroom. And then those two pieces of equipment, again, the library and the cafeteria, will be included in this following phase of the middle school. Any questions? Again, we're basically replacing the unit ventilators, the valves associated with them, and the controls associated with them.
I have one question. Sorry.
Go ahead.
With the floor in the gym, were you talking about replacing that completely or refurbishing that?
That is something that we need to evaluate, actually, like on site. We think because of the age, we're talking about replacing, but we are not dismissing the possibility of just refining. But it has to be maybe like a disruptive, like stand a little bit to see what we find, the thickness of the wood. That's something that it has to be more evaluated on site.
Okay.
How would you test that or examine that?
I'm a mechanical engineer. I'm not expert on flooring. We're going to bring people that will help.
you're going to actually test the thickness, I guess you're testing the thickness of the tongue and groove flooring there and somehow and then gonna come back with a
Yeah.
recommendation.
That's correct.
I have a couple other questions.
Okay.
And I mean no disrespect by any of these. But they've been asked to me and asked by other people here, but when I talked about the Avis project there, the 564, in other words, if we take the grant and the money the school districts put into it, we're over by, I think, $10,000 or something like that we have to come up with to satisfy that, which will probably come out of the money that we're gonna be borrowing down the road. Okay, I guess here's the question on any of these projects here, the unit ventilators, whatever. The school district, Mr. Walden, I'm probably not gonna put you on the spot, but we basically know the specs of what we're looking for, what's to keep us, I guess, from going out there and securing our own bids rather than going through, what advantage do we have going through Site Logic, first of all?
Mike, are you able to hear the questions? This is probably one you should address.
Yeah, no, I did hear that. I did hear that.
Okay.
Yeah. So through the GIZA contracting method, obviously it provides, as the acronym indicates, it's a guaranteed energy savings agreement. So the work that we do, the energy efficient measures that we incorporate through our contract comes with a guaranteed energy savings. So that's calculated, it's part of the contract. And if through our measurement and verification process, if we do not meet those savings, then we have to make up those savings back to you by refunding you for that amount.
And Mike, I don't want to interrupt you. I believe we've gotten 2 rebates at this point, one for $80,000, another for $20,000. So in excess of what we had promised in terms of energy savings, there have also been 2 rebates that would justify that piece of what Mike's saying. So I'll turn it back to him. Go ahead.
Well, I basically, I know the answer,
Yeah.
what the reason is, but I want to make sure that the public, because
Sure.
we're getting asked these questions, we want to make sure that they understand
Yep,
where we're coming from as a
Absolutely.
board and
Yeah.
having you doing this work.
sure, okay.
Yeah, the other thing that it provides for is it's an opportunity, which is very unique to Pennsylvania procurement laws, to be able to utilize contractors that are comfortable with the district, that you're comfortable with, that we're comfortable with, in lieu of the somewhat antiquated low bid, gets it type of work that the state has required for many years. The GIZA law allows you to go through with a design build process like we've done when it is an energy related project. So we deal with very good contractors. We know the quality of work is going to be good. And the other thing is, there are no change orders. So in publicly bid work, the contractors have the opportunity for any unforeseen conditions or mistakes on drawings or whatever. They have the opportunity to come back to you with a change order. Because of how we do the design build process and the exhaustive investigation that Carla does, and our design development professionals, when we provide a number, it is it. That's it. If there's something that comes up during the course of that work, we own it, and we get it done. So that's yet another one of the advantages. The other thing is that you are not seeing bills from us leading up to this evening. So we develop and design all of this work, if you will, at our risk. Obviously, you've given us direction to move forward with this, but we are not, it's up to us to come to you with a scope and a price that is acceptable to you. And that's why we work diligently to get good bids, to meet the scope requirements of the district before we present. So there's a lot of different advantages to it. It's not for every situation. If you're building an addition, if you have a lot of architectural work in a renovation, those are types of situations where the procurement will have to be design bid build, low bid gets it. But there are, the GIZA law has a lot of different scopes that fall into it. And you can actually do some ancillary work as well, like ceilings and things of that nature that support new HVAC systems. So hopefully that answered your question.
It did, and I thank you for that, and I think the important thing about that is the change orders, because every time you do something like that, especially you get into that gym floor or these unit ventilators, you never know what you're gonna get into, and you more or less have that built into the cost of it. And it leads into my next question here. These costs that you're giving us, the 564, whatever, your fees are built into that price, or are your fees additional to that? They're built in, I assume.
Mike, everything's built in, right?
Everything, yeah,
Yeah.
everything's in there, and that's the one thing that we try to communicate. Again, sometimes consultants talk in terms of hard costs and soft costs, and you get a number and you don't know whether it includes everything, and it gets confusing. We don't do that. We understand that the only thing you're interested in is total cost, and you want to know what that number is, and that's how we prepare it.
Okay, then I guess the next question following that up there, your fees, are they based on a percentage, or are they based on the project that you're doing and knowing what you might run into, or?
Yeah,
What?
every project is unique, obviously, so each project is gonna take a different level of effort in development and design, some more than others, some less than others. Some projects will take, maybe they take longer in construction, so that we have, our management staff might be involved longer, so there's not a magic formula, it's a level of effort, and that's really how all contracts should be, because percentage-based does not provide great incentives, if you will. We do it based on the level of effort that is necessary to get you to where you need to be.
Okay, and if the project happens to run very smoothly with the 100% completion or without any problems, is there a rebate?
Mike, go ahead. I actually think
We
that's
can
what
work on
you're
that
paying us
later,
for.
right?
Go ahead, Mike.
Well, I mean, in some cases, and not for this project, there are times when we'll build in what we call owner contingencies, which means we may anticipate that there's a possibility of something happening, we might put X amount of dollars in it, if it doesn't happen, that's something where we can provide the rebate, as you said. These projects are pretty cut and dry. So, but as we get into some of the more, if there's going to be some unknowns and some things where we need to provide some owner allowances, we'll call those out in the agreement, and if all of that money's not spent, then yeah, there'll be another amendment that will reduce the overall cost of the project.
Okay, thank you, I appreciate that. Another follow-up here.
I wanted to add something. Our engineering already looked at for the specifications, like we design the project. It's not a replacement where someone comes and check what you have and design, review the current codes, the energy codes, etc. And we specify equipment that meets all the new criteria, and that's what you will be getting project.
Okay, I guess my other question is, I'm having a problem with, and I think the whole board is, you gave us a cost analysis on the Avis and the unit ventilator here, but we're looking at other things here. We're looking at borrowing money also. So I think the board, I know I am, kind of split on how much money do we borrow. I mean, I don't really myself want to go ahead and approve this without knowing what the rest of the project is going to cost us, so we can borrow everything in one lump sum. And I don't know how close you are to coming back with an estimate on the rest of the project, so we can, gonna have to borrow money to pay for this somehow. So I'd rather than borrowing this X amount and then turn around 3 weeks later and borrow another X amount. Are you close, or could you give us an estimate, or?
Go ahead, I'm sorry, yeah.
We are planning, like right now, we have a broad estimate, but there are a lot of uncertainties, especially the removal of the ceiling, and we have to pop up a couple of tiles and see what is there, what is needed to get done to remove the ceiling tile, because we're foreseeing pipes and other things that might relocate it. And the flooring is another kind of big question mark. When those two are kind of clear out, we can provide a better estimate.
Okay, I guess I have one more question, but no, shut up for a little bit. But if, so the board, so I understand this, if we go ahead and borrow money, we okay these projects, maybe at the next meeting, whatever, we borrow enough money to cover it, and then we go out and search for money through Jamie Doyle. I'm thinking that we are committed to whatever rate she brings back to us. In other words, it's like going to the bank now and borrowing money at 2%. If we okay the project and have to borrow money down the road, we're kind of forced into whatever that rate is that she's gonna bring back to us, correct?
Yes, she estimated where it would be when we met with her.
Right.
But you would be selling it to banks and.
You're not guaranteed an interest beforehand though, so you're more or less,
Correct.
you have to take whatever that rate is that's brought back.
Correct.
Which hopefully it's gonna be within line of what we're hoping for, I guess, what we were projected before. Okay, no, that kind of answered my questions, appreciate it.
Okay.
Thank you.
No, I appreciate it, yeah.
Yeah, if I could add a little bit to that, I think, as far as and Carla, I apologize, I couldn't hear you very well when you were speaking there,
Good.
but, and you may have covered this, but, you know where you are with phase one, we know what we can spend for phase two, and this is at the middle school, to keep you with what the direction was, the 7.5 million. I think at one time, we did present kind of an overall plan with an overall estimate and impact of what it would take to get the middle school up to par.
That came out of this, by the way, if you remember this, that we had given to you several months ago. All the red ones at the top.
And Wayne, to that point, in talking, in dealing with PMF, and this is something that at other districts, we've worked with them as well, is that they have been suggesting to districts to borrow in increments, annually. So the 2025 would be, whatever that number is, which, right here we're showing 7.5, maybe it's a tad more. Then the next year, as we continue to develop the projects, you would know, where you need to be there. So I think overall, we have the information, and we do have that master plan. So I think PFM should be ready to speak with you on all of this.
And we work with them, Mike, pretty regularly, I believe, right, across the state?
That's correct.
Yeah.
That is correct, yeah.
And if you remember, in November, we did the reimbursement resolution saying that it would be with under a number going forward with future projects, and the intent was that we would borrow money. We're making sure that we're staying under that number as we develop the projects.
And the not-to-exceed figure's already been released as 7.5 million. That's the max for the identified projects, as well as what you tabled tonight.
And I think the news for tonight is that we did better than we thought with this first piece. So we're going to be able to get more into the 7.5 than we had anticipated, which is good. That may not always be the case depending on the market, et cetera. But as Wayne said, we work towards the budget. That's our goal, is to make sure that we're working with the district to keep this in budget. So
Yeah, and Mike and Carla are the engineers here, but I want to verify with you, 15% under GISA law can be outside of energy savings. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct.
So not every one thing has to fall in that bucket, which. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just got a note from Joe that I may be cut off from the Zoom because there's a time limit.
Okay.
If I could just run through the rest of the presentation just real quickly, that would be great. Wayne, can you get us to Avis real quick, Avis boilers? Yeah, just wanted to real quickly, show the board, and each year that we go through and complete projects, it's good to get a little sense of what was going on. This is some photographs of the new boilers. The installation is complete, training is complete. We're in the process of commissioning and doing the performance assurance on these boilers. Again, part of the GISA process, where we are making sure we're getting the right performance and the guaranteed energy savings. If you look at the next slide, Wayne, these are just some graphs that identify for you, just showing in the upper left that the boiler is connected through the control process. You can see the two boilers kind of on the left side, and how they connect and kind of the data associated with that. The bottom area is showing a printout of where we stand with temperature control at this time. So you can see that all of it is within the set points. Some of it is spot on, and others are leaning one way or the other. The green is like spot on. The light blue, we're watching that. It is within the set point regions, but we want to keep an eye on those. So just giving you an idea, some of the things we do to make sure that the work that we're producing for you is followed up upon. There's measurement verification, there's performance assurance with all of that. If you could move down 2 more slides, Wayne.
Next one, beyond prioritization of balance of 25 work.
Yeah. So following, the presentation on the 2 projects that we brought before you, the next step would be to completely define the second half of the 2025 spend. Carla spoke about what those items were, and the fact that we do need to work out a little more detail on the gym floor. We want to be doing that over the next month or so, develop that and bid that, so that we can bring to you, for board approval, that scope. And, obviously, we do want to take advantage of the summer months, and some of these things have some lead time to them. Obviously, your ventilators have more of a lead time than the others. And then we would procure and execute the work, from the spring, getting orders on and wrapping it up over the summer. All the while, we would continue to work with the administration and with the board on evaluating the master plan. To the comment about, understanding the budget and what the overall borrowing is, we're in constant communication on that and making sure that we're presenting live and up-to-date information, as we can. I wanted to make one final comment. As it relates to the 2 projects we presented tonight, we obviously bid those projects. Those bids are out there right now, and in today's economy and with the threat of tariffs, we will most likely, if we feel confident, most likely contact those subcontractors and make sure that they lock in their pricing. Because the one thing we don't want to do is in 2 weeks have any kind of fluctuation in that pricing. So what we do, and again, one of the advantages that was asked about the GISA process before is, we have the ability to put out letters of intent to award at our own risk, to make sure that these contractors feel comfortable, and if there are restocking charges or whatever, that's something that we take that burden on. But we try to advocate for our school districts to make sure that you're not being exposed to any markup or increases in cost. So I did want to end on that note as well. And then the last piece of our presentation really just talks a bit about the grant process. Again, as I mentioned, the district was fortunate to get some money this year. There's going to be another offering that comes out. We do want you to know that we're willing to help you with those grants. Katie Hetherington, who's on the screen right now, is a lobbyist with our firm. If you go to the next slide, Wayne, we were able to get funds for many school districts. We realized that Jersey Shore did most of your grant writing on your own, but all of these other districts, we actually wrote the grants. We had an 85% hit rate. We don't charge for grant writing, and it worked out really well. We've learned a lot about the process. We're very well connected, and we want to help if there's any grants that you would like to go after. And we obviously have all of the building assessments out there, so we know which ones would be best to qualify and tell your story, to the funding mechanism. So apologize for moving quickly through that, but I know I'm on a timeout here shortly. Any other questions?
You're going to maybe ask the same question about the availability, or, all right, go ahead.
Yeah, so with everything that's going on in the world today with the wildfires and everything, how confident are you in being able to acquire all this equipment and everything that you need to do these projects? Because you know that it's going to be in demand big time when they start rebuilding everything.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No doubt about it. We're constantly watching the market. We're watching the current events that go on in the world. That's part of the reason. It's kind of funny. It's a very difficult thing because we don't ever want to come across as being self-serving and pushing a project on somebody. But at the same time, we have to provide our professional expertise on the screen. We had a couple of months to develop those, get those ready, and get those under contract so that we avoided, price increases. A lot of these were developed and awarded before the year was out. And we were, obviously moving in the same direction here with Jersey Shore. So that's why I mentioned the letters of intent to award. Our intent is to reach out to our subcontractors tomorrow and just say that, you're the contractor we want to work with. What's it going to take to get you moving, get you, locking into your prices, those kind of things. So it's all about, moving in a direction where you give the subs confidence that they can release an order, so you don't get behind in the queue when everything hits the fan, with these natural disasters. But we've been pretty good at doing that and advising and moving things forward, so.
Thank you.
Other questions?
I have a question. With the middle school being our oldest building in the district and costing the most in renovations, I guess my concern is if we are borrowing such a large amount of money, would it be better utilized by attempting to eliminate a building that's going to cost us so much money and putting that into, say, possibly the high school, to move those students into that to utilize the money for everybody, like a larger percent of our student body?
That's a totally different path. You're talking about a total redesign of what you've, I think, been discussing with us for quite a few months, and those are decisions that are made at the board level, and we can certainly give you our perspective on these things. But this is the path that we were provided with and you took as a board. If you're going a different direction, we're certainly always interested in working with you. I think we've identified everything we can for you. And again, that's a value judgment that you as a board would need to make. Mike, do you have anything to add to that? Am I on the right path?
No, you're spot on.
Okay.
I guess my concern is the future, like 5 years down the road when we put 76 unit ventilators in for $7.5 million and there's only 300 kids in that building. Like, then what? Then we have a completely underutilized building. And I guess I brought that question to you because of the statement that was made as far as your recommendation.
With the additional closure of Saladaysburg.
Correct.
And then the other discussions that we had, and I think I can go back to 2021 and discussions we had, and Dr. Omer may or may not recall, but we kind of went through every single building, and I don't know that we did all that in public. And I think one of the words that came up with the middle school, because it was the oldest, was kind of unwieldy, the possibility of doing that and all the change and all the things you would need to do to make that actually happen. And once again, I was a superintendent for 13 years. I don't speak from a point of not having any background with these things. These are tough decisions, tough decisions. Closure of buildings, moving kids, grade allocations is difficult. The middle school just never seemed to make sense as we went through this for various reasons. I don't know if you want to go through all those things right now. I don't know that that's necessarily the path you want us to go, but I do remember it was discussed, and it just did not seem to make a lot of sense with where you were in terms of possibly having to do additions, which I think would have been part of the case. That's my recollection of those discussions. I'm not saying you can't do it, certainly your decision, but I do remember it was discussed and it just didn't make a lot of sense at that point.
Any other questions?
I think I should be honest, and I'm on the school board in Danville. We just got some numbers, and they're public, about possibly adding on to buildings and doing the same types of things you're doing. Additions were just out of sight, the costs. I don't know exactly why. I'm not an architect, I'm not an engineer, but it was just and we're a fairly wealthy district. and we just had to dismiss those ideas out of hand because we just couldn't afford them. And I think they're on our website, so you're welcome to take a look.
And Mike, I think what I heard from you was similar to what Wayne has said. It's more money to build onto the building than to renovate what we already have. Am I speaking correctly, Mike?
I said I'm getting him back in.
Okay.
Sorry.
I don't know if you can answer that, Carla.
I've been working on GISA projects for like 14, 16 years. And I've seen buildings that we're recommending closing. And what do we usually see on those buildings? They are in urban areas where they don't have space to expand. For example, just like between the parking lot, you either remove the parking lot to expand your building, but you don't have a functional building with a parking lot. And the other thing that I've seen is when you have a lot of differences in levels that are not ADA compliance. I have seen bathrooms that have right to get on in the public restroom, there's a step. And to flat that out, you have, or either like remove or lower all the floors, that's a lot of money for a renovation that is hard to justify. Those are the kind of buildings where we say kind of the best idea is just to close, like you don't have a lot to work with. In this case, in the middle school, you have a lot of space around the building, and it's something that, like, yeah, the building is older, but in the Northeast, we have a lot of 100-year-old buildings, and they're functional. So yeah, just keeping up your equipment on your systems and your finishes, you can have a 100-year-old building. We just have closed Westview. Is a school in North Hills, north of Pittsburgh, that they did a major renovation and addition because the school is turning, I think this year or next year, 100 years old. It started as a high school with an auditorium, and now it's an elementary school. So it went all the way down from a smaller building that was a high school to a medium building that was a middle school, and now it's a larger building, elementary school. And it's working. So because it's old, it doesn't mean to be turned down. That's another project that you can, we're wrapping it up. They should be able to find information on that project, and we can provide it too.
Yeah, any data we can show you. I'm assuming if you were not to have your middle school, you'd be looking at a 7 to 12 K to 6 model. And those are around. You don't find them too much in districts of your size. Not that you're huge, but most of them are fairly small, 1,200 students or less. You find some like it, but not an awful lot. You're getting into age range issues and philosophical academic issues as well, which you can certainly talk your way through. They do take some time. And meanwhile, you have other issues that you're dealing with that you're not addressing, which get expensive. And that's why they're tough decisions. That's why being a school board's not easy, and making the recommendations is not easy. You get to the point where it's decision time. But we'll work with you either way. We're certainly willing to answer any questions, and we're here.
Other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
That's my report. But while we're moving on, I will call to your attention, though, at your seats is also the beginning of the budget binder. You have, as I described, under district overview, Mr. Enders has provided the budget calendar. Even though you saw this before, it's in here in color, so you can see when you will get specific pieces of information and when decisions will need to be made. Really kicks off with the first one tonight, which is your adoption of the Act 1 resolution. I'll talk about that more when we get to that point. But you also have an overview from me so that you know what we've done with the budget up to this point, as well as I know something that I think Ben suggested. It was a fantastic idea because you never really saw before. Part of the process is that administrators present their draft budgets to E&I, and we go through their budgets and make adjustments. So one thing we did this year as we were going through that process is I kept track of those recommended adjustments so that you could see what changes have been made before we got to this point. So you have an overview document from me that gives that process, as well as a printout that shows you where budgets were adjusted already before they got to your level. And those administrators will be back in front of you to answer questions on February 27th. They're shaking their heads at me. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Next, we will move on to curriculum and instruction. Items to improve, letter A. Do we do, I guess you just, we don't need to. Is mine not yours?
Yeah,
I
I don't
know,
know why
that's why I
that's,
don't know why
I'm
that's
sorry,
in
that should be after.
Okay.
That's
Is that how
totally
you-
a mistake.
No
Sorry.
No worries, it's fine. Okay,
Don't forget to remind of the tabling before you go to courtesy.
to the floor, correct. Okay, I apologize, no worries. We're going to have courtesy of the floor next, and I just wanted to reiterate that we were tabling items B and C under buildings and grounds. So the first person that signed up tonight was Mr. Schweitzer. You had labeled buildings and grounds, Mr. Schweitzer. What specifically would you like to discuss under that?
Well, when I saw 500,000 and I saw the $3 million figure, it got my attention. And all I was gonna ask the board, would you please explain what that is all about before you vote on it? And I've already got quite an explanation. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Mr. Pryor, under the superintendent's, the report liaison positions, just so you know, that was not a voting item. So,
Bob Pryor, Midland Township. Thanks to the good Dr. Ulmer, I am clear on those liaison questions I had. Thank you.
okay, you're welcome. And then Mrs. Beerley, buildings and grounds, you have C. So since we're tabling that, I'm assuming there isn't anything else that you wanted to speak on under buildings and grounds. You can comment at our next courtesy of the floor. Because we're not taking any action items on that.
You'll have every opportunity at the next session. You'll have 3 minutes at the next session to talk about. I'm going to go by your policy. You can move forward.
All right, next, under curriculum and instruction, item to approve, letter A, the school calendar. May I have a motion, please?
Motion.
I'll second.
Any questions or concerns?
Just a comment from Dr. Ulmer. This is basically follows this year, if I'm following it right.
Yes,
For
very close to this year.
Okay. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say aye. Motion passes. Moving on to personnel. Items to approve A through G. B is a roll call vote. So we will take items, we will first do A and then C through G. Do I have any questions or concerns on letter A and then letter C, D, E, F, G? Any questions there or concerns? Oh, I apologize. I need I need a motion, please.
Make a motion to approve letters, vote on letters
A, C through
C.
G.
Through G, excluding B.
Mm-hmm.
I'll second.
Any questions or concerns?
Is that Mr. Allen or Mr. McDonald? I thought so.
Okay, hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say aye. Okay, motion passes. Then a roll call for letter B. May I have a motion for that, please?
Motion.
Second.
Mr. Allen?
No.
Mr. Brungard?
No.
Mrs. Calhoun?
No.
Mrs. Edwards?
No.
Mr. McDonald?
No.
Mrs. Peters?
No.
Mr. Furman?
No.
Mrs. Thomas?
Yes.
Mrs. Stemler?
No.
Motion fails.
Okay, under building, yes.
8-1.
Under buildings and grounds, we tabled letters B and C, so the vote will be on letter A. May I have a motion, please?
Motion.
I'll second.
Who did the first one? I apologize, Tim. Tim, thank you. Any questions or concerns?
What shape is this vehicle in?
This is the one that we replaced in the budget. The reason it's on here tonight to be decommissioned is because now that the new, Mr. Wall is getting ready to take delivery of the new one that you purchased, so now we're decommissioning the other one that we already approved to. You replaced it in the budget, but we waited until the delivery of the new one to get rid of the old one.
I have a quick question. There's no value in the trade-in? I'm sure you looked at that?
That's why we're going, the trade-in
Wasn't worth it?
Do you think we're gonna get more money out of it on municipal than we would just scrapping it?
hope so.
And if it doesn't go, then our plan is to just scrap it? Like,
I think we'll do it.
Usually you'll get a bid and there'll be a contract associated. You'll have another opportunity.
okay.
Any other questions? Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say aye. Motion passes. Under finance, items to approve A and B. B is going to be a roll call vote. May I have a motion, please?
Motion.
Second.
Okay, we will vote on letter A. Are there any questions or concerns? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say aye. Motion passes. Moving on to letter B, a roll call vote, please. Dr. Ulmer.
Mr. Allen?
No.
Mr. Brungard?
No.
Mrs. Calhoun?
No.
Miss Edwards?
No.
Mr. McDonald?
No.
Mrs. Peters?
No.
Mr. Furman?
No.
Mrs. Thomas?
No.
Mrs. Stemler?
No.
Motion fails 9-0.
Okay, under miscellaneous, items to approve, A through E. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Any questions or concerns? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say aye. Motion passes. There is nothing under old business. Next, we will have courtesy of the floor.
Good evening. First of all, I apologize for the interruption with my phone, but it was a call that I received bad news on and kind of went.
No worries, it's fine.
You're about addressing buildings and grounds tonight with everything. Due to what Mr. Allen has said over here, due to the volatility of the situation that we've had in the Los Angeles area, plus the hurricanes and all that, last June that went from St. Pete all the way up through the Carolinas. The suggestion has been made by one person in the audience that we ought to wait 5 years before we take any action on it or anything. Well, what's going to happen is with the demand on materials and everything else, the prices for things in that 5-year period will probably double, triple, or better than that, because the price of building materials within the next couple of months, you're going to see going right up through the roof like a rocket. That's the worst advice to ever give somebody, because even the visitor laid down today, they're only good as today because the way the price is going to fluctuate with things, the longer you delay things, the more it's going to cost. And I've only been here for this, just catching tonight with everything. But I would think that you would want to get all your projects all lined up at the same time and have these people come back with the total cost on what it's going to run, and not borrow in phases, and you have, then you know exactly what you're going to be doing with it. And there is really no expansion room over at the middle school with it because of the swampland, and most of it's been built on swampland over there anyways, which Mark, I'm sure, will confirm that. Am I right, Mark? With it. So if you have a chance to get rid of another building and consolidate in, that would be better. I don't know. That is the oldest building, but over the years, there's been a lot of repairs and stuff that have been kicked down the road that is inflating the prices. But you certainly cannot follow the suggestion of waiting till after the debt's paid off in 2030, because if any action takes then with it, it's going to really be into 2023 or 2020, 2030, somewhere in there with it. And to say, that was quoted in the Sun Gazette, there's no immediate remodeling needed, they don't know what they're talking about. All of a sudden, they're an expert in building maintenance and all that, which they aren't. Maybe education-wise, yes. Thank you. And I want to thank the board for those people who voted for closure of the school. It took a lot of nerve to do it, and you've gotten a lot of flack. No firsthand. We did it, Mr. Pryor, too. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Shireman.
Ray Beard in Hyatt Township. I want to thank you for tabling the vote on those projects this evening until we had a better understanding of what was involved on those. It just seemed a little hasty to vote tonight. What I did find interesting, though, was that one of the gentlemen from Site Logic mentioned a master plan, suggesting that we have a master plan already outlined. And if we do, I was just wondering when that was going to be presented at a public board meeting for all of us to see the scope and sequence of that master plan for, I guess, the entire hunt list, if that's what we're talking about. So I'm hoping that maybe at the next meeting that could be shown to us. And I will say also that I am probably one of the most energy efficient cheerleaders, maybe. Well, my family thinks I'm crazy sometimes, some of the things that I do. But in 1982, my husband and I worked with a physics professor from Lock Haven University to design and build a passive solar house. And a week ago, when it was 11 degrees outside, our thermostat was set at 71 degrees. And with just our front windows open, our house was 74 degrees with a solar gain that we got from just simply having sunshine through the windows. So I appreciate energy efficiency and all that you're looking at as far as becoming more energy efficiency. But my question is, are univentilators worth closing a school? It's not a safety hazard. The children aren't at risk. Are hot water heaters worth closing a school? Are hot water storage tanks worth closing a school? Is a new gym floor worth closing a school? A gym curtain divider and wall padding, are they worth closing a school? Displacing those children from their community school? Putting them on buses for we don't know how long because we've not done a study? Are those kinds of projects worth closing a school? Certainly, if we have a gym ceiling that is in danger of collapse, absolutely, we need to consider doing the repairs to that, because then students are at risk. But these other things, while I applaud energy efficiency, and I do recognize, having grown up in a household where my father worked in building construction all his life, and my husband worked in building construction all his life, I know how prices fluctuate, but I also know that after a natural emergency, once that has passed, those prices go down again. So we don't know what those prices are going to be in 5 years. Certainly they're going to be inflation, they'll go up some, but is it worth closing a school when we know in the 29-30 budget, we pay off the school debt and we free up $2.5 million a year to pay for projects? And to close a school for a new gym floor or some new heat univentilators, to me, is just a terrible, terrible thing to do. And I hope that you revisit that decision, because it was a bad decision and it's not good for those kids.
Thank you, Mrs. Beerley.
Bob Pryor, Mifflin Township. All I ask the board and everybody sitting in this room is to look what happened at Nipponos and ask any parent over there if they would want to go back to that school. Ask the children. That's all you have to do. There's your answer. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pryor. All right, well, thank you for coming tonight. Meeting's adjourned.